I think I was there by 11:34, and I see surrounded by cop cars, and I just get out the car and I'm like, excuse me, can I ask what my husband's car's doing over there? And they said, how do you know that he was here? And they immediately start like questioning me. And then they open up his car door and they didn't block anything. After about 10 minutes of him just being there and I'm seeing everything. Again, just like so unaware of like what actually is happening in this moment.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Just for Today podcast, where we dive deep into uncomfortable topics with zero filters. My name is Adriana, and today I have Makela here with me. Hi, Makela.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sitting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Makela and I actually met through social media. I don't even know when, a few months ago.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're a widow, you kind of just
find
search
them
for other widows.
Yeah, you do. Gotta find them. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Makela lost her husband 2 years ago to suicide, and she is here today to share her story with us. So first, I want to know a little bit about you.
Okay. First and foremost, I'm a mom. Definitely a mom.
Most important title.
Yep. Most important title. I wanted nothing more than to be a mom, and that didn't stop when my husband died. So I think it only made it more important how I show up for them. So my son, he just turned 6. And then my daughter's 3.5. And when their dad died, my daughter was 15 months old and my son was 3. Aside from being a mom, I own my own company, travel the world, essentially just doing really bougie weddings in cool places. My kids have gotten to go to far more places than I ever did until I became an adult. And yeah, just kind of showing up for them, showing up now for myself, which has been a learning process.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I should have messaged you for my wedding. I've been here in a couple months because I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. You know, I got you. Yeah. Let me write your timeline.
I don't
That's
know.
like always my thing. It's like, I love timelines. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how you do that as a job. I like can't even plan one.
Yeah. Well, I always think like thriving in chaos.
Yes.
You know, like I live for like the problems I can't solve.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about you and your husband. How long were you guys together for?
Yeah. Almost a decade.
Wow.
Before he died. Yeah. We got married far too young. Met him when like barely almost 21. I'm married by 23. And had our son. I was almost 25. I was 24, I think, kind of. I'm like, math is mathing somewhere. I met him my senior year of college out in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
I was already working full time, finishing my degree at night, and met him like first day of school, senior year, and called my mom up the next day and said, I just met my future baby daddy.
Oh.
Yeah, we basically were together ever since. And then moved to Arizona about now 5 years ago. When he had died, it was about 3 years before.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, us moving was definitely the best thing we ever did. We had no family out in Northern California, or I should say like near us within a couple hours. I had zero family. His mom lived about 2 hours north of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were there until our son was just about to turn 1. But living there was probably, now looking back, like the hardest time of our marriage. He really struggled with drinking, his anger, destroyed every place we lived in out there. And when I look back and now 2 years out, I'm able to see like how I didn't choose myself. Then I was so determined just to be married, to be a wife, and to be a mom. And so, yeah, when we were out there, it was actually my very first work trip that I got invited on to Dallas that I didn't trust him to have our son overnight. When our son was born, it was 2020, it was COVID. So like there wasn't really a lot of events. And the first time I did get to just like go do a meeting or something in the middle of the day, he was watching our son, and by like midday, he's blacked out drunk, forgot to feed our kid. And so he totally would have expected me to like cancel my trip, not go. And I decided to not. I called my mom up. She was living here in Arizona. And I said, what do I do? And she says, you're going to get on a plane and you're going to come bring me your son if you want to have your career. And I did. And I now look back at that trip as like the catalyst that changed my career, but also the catalyst that changed our family. And so I remember turning off my location. I told my mom, what I was doing. He left for work. I took our son and flew here. I found that moment I was like ending our marriage, knowing that choice of taking someone's kid out of the state. I told him the minute once we landed. And truly dropped my son off at my mom's, hopped on the flight, came back the next day. But watching my son just like interact with all my family that was out here then, I called him up. I walked inside my grandfather's house and I just said, your son and I are moving to Arizona. And then he said, are you now? What about me? And I said, if you want this family, you're going to move too. And a month later, we were moving. I wish that was like the time that would have made him stop drinking then. But it didn't. We came here end of May of 21. And I remember 4th of July, he was blacked out drunk at my grandfather's, punched the wall, and just kind of kept spiraling. And then his last day drinking was February 6th. So he had a tattoo that said 2/7. So February 7th was the last day, or like his first day being sober. And that was honestly the night that I had thought he was capable of harming himself. We had gotten into, he was raging drunk, screaming, fighting. I remember my mom being over and just turning to her and being like, he's not coming home tonight. And he left. And usually if we were like fighting, I would be able to call him, say your son wanted to say goodnight or whatever it was. And we could like be kosher on FaceTime for 2 minutes. But he wasn't answering, and he wasn't coming home. And so I had called up at that time my best friends, and her husband actually drove to him in like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Sure enough, he was drunk, but he was passed out in his car. He had shared like he had those intentions that night. Came home the next day. And that was really the first time that I sat him down and I just said, either you need to choose to get sober for yourself, or me and your son aren't going to be a part of this. Well, I've always encouraged him or tried to put like limitations around like, okay, no liquor or things. I knew at that point it was just no longer safe. Mm-hmm. And he did. And he quit cold turkey, started going to therapy. I always knew him drinking was just masking his own hurt and his own demons of just how he was raised. Right. And really over the next 2.5 years, he just grew and changed. We changed. I've been in therapy since I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. So I'm definitely team therapy, but to watch him start to be willing to like unbox his own boxes. Because I said, I don't want my kids to do it for us. At that point, yeah, I didn't even think we were going to get to a place to be able to have our daughter. And we did. And I'm so thankful now, looking back.
Did you know he had a drinking problem when you guys met before you got married?
Yeah, no, it was beyond prevalent. It probably, I think the first night he was kicking me out of his house to go walk home because I couldn't tell you why now, but it was never that like he was the perfect man and then he changed. I just truly thought if you loved a broken person, I remember you used to always tell him like, we're two broken people. Let's just hope our broken puzzle pieces fit together. And now I've learned it just doesn't work that way. You can't love someone more than they love themselves and more than they choose themselves. Yeah. And so, no, it was always there. He was always capable. And even while alcohol was definitely a trigger and surely can shorten the fuse of what would happen, he was still fully capable of all those same things. And so, yeah, we had done an intervention before we had moved. He had destroyed our second apartment. My mom flew out. His mom came down. We had each of our best friends and his grandfather who had modeled to him, unfortunately, that it's okay to hit your partner. That was just kind of like the family line that he came from at the time. But his grandfather got sober and he had always really encouraged him to change. And so when he did, when his grandfather was dying, it was probably one of the greatest gifts I know he got to have was to fly to his grandfather in the hospital and tell him I've gotten sober. At that point, he'd been sober for a year, and to have that. And so I thought that could have been the time of like, if there was something that was going to break him, it was losing his grandfather. And to see him remain sober just was like another reason why I just felt like I could trust this was truly the trajectory, like he was changing. Yeah. And so when it came to when he chose to end his life, I thought we made it. We were about to move 2 days later to a big, beautiful house. We had 2 healthy, beautiful kids. I stayed when I should have left. And so I just thought like we were there.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that he would destroy like apartments and things. So he would get angry and physical. Would he ever do that when he was sober, or was it just...
Yeah, he could.
He could.
Yeah,
but it would more come out when he was drunk.
Definitely drunk.
Yeah.
Then there was just like no filter in what he would say or do at that point. Still was capable of it all, but I could see him when he was sober, like good cop, bad cop on each shoulder. Like, should I take it this far? And then it was just too that much there. I think the worst it ever got, I mean, I bailed him out of jail twice. Like now looking back, I'm like, what were you doing for yourself? And it's so hard. I think one of the questions as a suicide widow, I get asked all the time, like if I knew our ending, would I still have chosen him? And I'm sure you've gone that too. Yep. And it's so hard because I think if I would have chosen myself, yes, I would have had a different story, but I wouldn't have my kids. And so it's so hard to say like, yes, or just this week, my son turned 6 and it started kindergarten. I was on the phone with my best friend, same best friends who I'd called when that night he was driving around drunk. And I just said, God, this is a moment that I wish their dad was here, but not for me. I actually don't wish them for their dad to be back in my life. I love myself so much differently now, but I wish there was a version where their dad was still here to be their dad. Yeah.
Do you think you would have ever gotten to that point of loving yourself as much as you do right now if he was still alive?
No. Which is so sad to say.
I know. It's complicated grief.
Yeah, it's so complicated. And unless you're in it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
My mom, when we had held an intervention for him, had shared, my daughter's never going to leave you. If you aren't going to change, you need to leave her because she's not going to do it. And fortunately, she was right. And I think he knew that. And he was always well aware, as long as he just said, I'm sorry, even if it was multiple days later and the hungover had worn off, I was going to forgive him. Yeah. As bad as it was. Right. And so, I don't know, I look now at my kids and I'm just, if there's anybody I'm accountable to, it's to them for everything I say or do to get them through this. Yeah. And I just have thought over and over, if they were me, what would I want them to do? Right. And there's no shame in our role in this story. If anything, I just feel such a bigger responsibility to share because he didn't talk. And I think the choice of suicide is for those who want to suffer in silence. And I just always keep saying, like, we're going to heal out loud. And I just remember being 29 years old with a 1 and a 3-year-old and being like, who do I look to? Where is there any book that says, like, your spouse died by suicide, what the fuck are you supposed to do? And not that I think I'm handling life perfectly, but I'm trying to do it in the healthiest way for me and my kids. And so if it just even helps one widow feel a little less alone on the day after they found their partner, God, I wish I had that then. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's very common for stigmatized deaths. I felt the same, and it's funny you say that because I was 29 also with a 1-year-old and my son was almost 3 and 4-year-old. And I'm like, okay, now what do you do? What do I do now? And it's not talked about a lot. Even you just making that comment of, if he were still alive, if you would have found that, I feel like so many women who have been in a relationship with an addict can say that. Yeah. And it's hard because you feel so guilty, but you're not the only one feeling that way. So I think speaking it out loud helps not only you, but so many others know that they're not alone. And it's just complicated grief. Like it comes with so many feelings and emotions. And then, you have your kids that one day that they're going to know what happened. And society has their own opinion about it. They sure do. So I think it is important to talk about it and heal out loud so they're so confident in their knowledge about it that other people can't tell them what it's like or, like your dad didn't love you, your dad, because I'm sure you have those thoughts too. Oh, all the things. Yeah. I feel like year 1, I didn't share the abuse that happened between us. Really, it was my mom who knew and my 2 best friends and his mom. Yeah. I wasn't open to talk about it. And I just felt like when you just share immediately that your partner died by suicide, people immediately go, did you know? And it's like, well, it's not that easy. And then when I started to feel in the weirdest way, like peace in my life for the first time in 8 years or so. I felt so guilty saying that, but I wasn't sharing there was this other version of him at that time. I was only sharing, okay, I had an amazing, incredible husband because that's what you post on social media.
Right.
I wasn't posting. I mean, I remember distinctly I had this post on Instagram of us at Disneyland. And I'm positioning my body in a certain way so you can't see the bruises on my arm. But I post a smiling picture. And for me, I just remember being like, I won't heal if I'm only leaving this version of him. I have to share my truth in this too. And the amount of other widows who've came and just like, thank you for being willing to say, like, there's also peace in this side of this too. I'm not wondering what version am I coming home to of him. If it's just my home now is filled with whatever love I get to pour into it.
Yeah.
It's not a great thing to say at times, like, I'm actually happy that I get to go find what's better for me in my life. Because I still wish there was a version where their dad was here, but I wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't have this confidence. I wouldn't choose myself the same way.
This version of you would not exist without the death of, you that died with him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah.
I also don't want to be. Now as I'm in my 30s, dating again, it's just like when I had to figure out who am I, what kind of partner do I want now? I mean, dating apps, like even that alone, there wasn't even like dating apps really. I mean, think like Tinder was like just starting to take off when we had met. So it was just like not a world that I had lived in. Yeah. And in my early 30s now, there's not many people who could say, oh, I was married almost 10 years or with somebody for that long. So it's just a very different realm to step into now.
It's definitely different. I do want to get into the dating in a little bit, but I want to know, did your son, was he ever around when any of the abuse occurred?
Definitely when he was like much younger.
Nothing he remembers.
Nothing that he remembers. Yeah. Even when we like first moved to Arizona and he was still at a heavy drinking stage. Yeah, my son wouldn't have remembered at a year, 4th of July, what that was like with him, which I'm so thankful for. I don't want those memories for him. It's so hard. Like now, I know about you, but I really struggle looking at pictures of my kids at the ages when their dad had died. It's like I can see their faces when I had to tell them that their dad died. And it's just, I like skip over those in my phone. And while that's the time that they love to go back to and look at the most, it's probably the most, if anything, triggering for me is to like see them in that phase because it just that wasn't supposed to be our ending.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Or like seeing pictures when they were younger than the age, like when Eric was still alive, and it's like, oh, innocence, not.
Yep. All of a sudden they just like aged 20 years and it's like they didn't ask for it. They're so innocent. And I think that's the hard part now as my son's getting older. He asks a lot more questions. And I remember, again, being a therapy, I'm pro therapy. My mom was a therapist. And so when she had passed, so my mom passed 8 months before my husband did. But we had put my son into therapy then. So even at 3 years old. So when my husband had died, it was kind of like, we're just going to keep on rolling through this and keep him in it. And that way he wasn't like completely outside of understanding what death is. He had just kind of understood it with my mom. But I remember his therapist coming to me when it was more focused on my husband's death, being like, I just want to be honest with you. There is no books and research on childhood suicide grief. I'm like, well, that's encouraging. I'm like, so when am I supposed to tell my 3-year-old? And I think I would have handled it so much differently if they obviously had saw him too.
Right.
Or in that way, he dropped him off at school that morning and obviously didn't come home. And so for my son since then, so I did tell him that day, your dad died, but he isn't aware currently right now that it's suicide. It's been more so laying the foundation of, yes, your dad was an incredible dad to you guys, because that is the truth. But there also was this really flawed person in there, and just talking him through that. What was his own family dynamics like? What does it mean to struggle with alcohol? Well, okay, but if mom has a margarita one day, it doesn't necessarily mean that I struggle with alcohol. One, I barely drink anyways, but having that trust. So that way when I do share one day with them, and even his therapist, she was like, I want to let you know. I remember asking her, when do I tell him? Like, what age? And she's like, well, I can tell you, we encourage parents to have the sex talks with kids at age 7, because by then they're already been and I'm like, I'm not ready for 7.
What?
I'm like thinking it's going to be like 15 or something, like so much older. And she's like, obviously you're going to meet your kid where you're going to meet them. But that's when we encourage parents to have the sex talk with their kids now. And I'm like, and so now as my son's like 6, I'm like counting down. I'm like, but I don't want it to be, okay, he's 7 now, I'm going to tell him. I've always shared with him, we don't have secrets in our family, only surprises. But he's become really aware of, how can I keep asking this question to get more answers? Yeah. And I just sit him down and I just say, it's not that this is a secret I'm trying to keep from you. I want you to know you deserve to have all of your answers, and you will one day. But I want to know first, it doesn't mean that you're going to share with your sister, because she is 2 years younger, and what she can emotionally understand may be different. I remember initially I was so scared reading the statistics of the amount of kids who also harm themselves because they want to go visit their parents and are not aware or fully understand that it's a permanent decision. So I didn't even want it to become a realm of a thought for them at that age. When I'm trying to teach them ABCs, I'm like, it's just how do you balance those kind of talks? And so I would imagine if my kids were much older, if my kids were 12, 15, I actually had my 15-year-old niece. She was living with my mom. And so when my mom had died, we had taken her in. So I wasn't just left with my 1 and 3-year-old. I had a 1, 3, and a 15-year-old. But for her, I did tell her she was at an age where she could understand. She could try to process as best as she could. So I don't know. There's times I wish they were older just to be able to have those conversations. Or when the Out of Darkness walk happens every year in September, I remember the first year after, I was like, I need to tell them so we could go to this. And I was like, no, one day this will become our community. Yeah. Just not yet.
Not today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you tell him if he comes to you right now and he's like, how did daddy die? What do you say?
Yeah. Usually then I start to go, what are the pieces you know? Because often kids in grief, they're not just going to process it once. It's going to take multiple times and in different ways. And so at first, some of our conversations were like, well, I remember he dropped me off that morning. I'm like, okay. But as he gets more specific and he's like, but where did you find him? Okay. It was in a parking lot. But by where? Well, where we were living, it was nearby Target. Okay. I remember one day I picked him up from school and he's like, me and so figured out how daddy died. I'm like, all right, tell me how. He goes, he thinks it was a werewolf. I think it was a vampire. I think at the time he's probably 4.5, maybe 5. And I'm like, because again, kids are innocent. They're just trying to piece together the things for themselves. You know what? Those are some really good ideas. But I don't think it's really appropriate for you and your friends at school to be talking about ways your daddy died. But those are still some pretty good ideas, dude. Yeah. And it's just, I want him to, again, him having those thoughts and those feelings isn't wrong. He's just trying to put together the pieces. But usually when he asks me, it's the how. It's just me asking, what are you looking for right now? Are you missing your dad? What do you miss most about him? Or then I'll be like, oh, I just keep thinking about the last time he dropped me off. All right, well, what can you tell me? And it's just, I see him trying to grasp still the memories. Yeah. Versus my daughter, she was just too young. So their hurts are going to be completely separate and different. She's mourning a person she never got to know, but know they're supposed to be a father figure in her home. Versus he remembers his dad and wishes there was somebody for that too. Yeah. But how old were yours?
Mine were 4.5, 2.5, and 13 months.
Yeah.
So it is different with every child. My son was the 2.5-year-old, and also when he asked how his dad died, and I just felt like I didn't know what to say at that time. And it's funny because as you were telling the story about your son, I remember one day he came in the room, he's like, I think daddy got eaten by an alligator. I was like, oh shoot, an alligator. Oh my gosh.
Wow,
but it really is they're so innocent, and they just don't know, and they just want answers to things because they don't understand why or how it happened. So in their little brain.
And I also kind of love that he doesn't realize right now how taboo of a topic it is to talk about. I want him to feel like he's allowed to talk about, he lost his dad. It's the truth. It's his story. And, even as he's starting school this last week, he's like, well, what if I get made fun of? And he actually told me that on the first day, someone had asked him, oh, is your mom or your dad picking you up? And his response was, my dad died. It's going to be my mom. And I'm like, oh, this was on your first day? And I'm like, so what'd the kids say? And like, he's like, well, you know, when people grab your arm and they're like, I'm sorry. He goes, she did that to me. And that felt really nice.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, there's been times where we're like I took him on a work trip with me to Northern California where we used to live. I was out there. And he had asked for that trip. He wants to go visit places his dad and I went to. So we went to this barbecue place that we liked. And first when we sit down, I make my kids order their own food and drinks. Waiter comes, he's like, hey, what can I get for you? And my son, Andre, goes, my daddy died. He used to come here with my mommy. And I'm like, that's sure right. He would take a water. Thank you so much. And it's just like, I remember the look on the man's face and he's just like, and it's like, but it's the truth.
Yes.
And I don't want him, if I'm like, honey, we don't say that, like that immediately teaches him shame.
Yes.
And I don't want that. So it's this like fine line of like, but at the same time as a mom, being that person, like my heart just breaks.
It hurts.
Oh, it hurts so bad. It's like, I can't fix it. I can't change it. But if I'm not willing to accept this reality for myself, then they're never going to too.
I say that all the time. Like, I wonder where the switch happens, you know, where it's like all innocence and this is life. This is just what happened. My dad's dead versus when it becomes something you're like, you shy away from and don't talk about. I've had those conversations with people so many times because that's happened to me. Like, I couldn't even tell you how many times that, you know, we're somewhere and they're like, yeah, my daddy's dead. Or like, we're buying cake on his birthday. And she's like, he would have been this year, but he's dead, but we're going to sing to him. And the people just like, look at you, like, is she lying? Or and,
like approval, like is this a real story? And I'm like, yes, this is real. I remember Father's Day that just passed. He had ended his life on Father's Day weekend. And so now my kids love to do donuts with dad, but we pick up donuts and we go to the grave. Last year we're stopping in a whatever place.
You already know it's coming. You have to prep yourself.
I have to prep myself, right? Because we're there at like, because it's Arizona, it's already 100 degrees at 8 a.m. So we're going at like 7 a.m., right? So we're in the place getting donuts and she's like, wow, you guys are up early. What are you guys up to go do? But my son looks up to me and he's just like, do I tell her? And I'm like, you could be honest. He goes, my daddy died. We're going to go have donuts with them. I'm like, sure are. Have a great day. It's just like, but you brace yourself for it. And I remember like those first few times, I just crumbled. It's so hard. How do you be that rock when like you can't even be it for yourself? First day, I'm just like, this is what it is. Let's add it to the book of funny moments of this is the shitty mom club right now.
Yes. But it's so funny, like to us being able to like go back and like look at it or even the reactions we get. You're like, oh my God.
And you're like bracing for it. You're like,
see yourself.
Seeing it. And I'm like, I swear I'm fine. It's fine. It's fine. We're moving past this. We're on and we're going.
It's just one of those grief things you just got to push through.
You do. And every day it's like, what's next? What's coming next? But it's really once I started to be like, oh, this feeling's never going to leave us.
No.
Like, as much as I would like to push this off, and it's not like I'll never not be a widow who lost my husband by suicide. They, again, once they know, will never not be the kids who lost their dad by suicide. I hope what we are continues to grow beyond that, but this is forever going to be a part of us. And so once I was willing to be like, all right, this is always going to take a seat at our table with us, we just became happier when you're not running from it. And it's there.
I want to rewind a little bit. And if you don't mind sharing with us the day that your husband took his life. I know you mentioned it was a few days before moving and he was sober at the time, correct? So if you don't mind walking us through kind of what happened.
That week, so we were moving in 2 days. It was on a Thursday that he died. But that week and kind of that week before, I could just see him being a bit more disconnected. And it was kind of that pattern. It felt like every 6-8 months, it was kind of like the seasonal depression of like all of a sudden, felt like every October he'd tell me all the reasons why we should divorce, we should break up or whatever it was. And it was just kind of like, why? Everything's fine. And like, it was just like annual time. So I just thought like, maybe this was one of those times, but then it just became like, I could just see it a little bit more disconnected. And so I remember on that Tuesday that week, We were in our office. We were sharing because my niece just moved in. She's in my office room. And we're sitting there, and I just asked him, I just said, like, I just seeing you not as happy. Like, talk to me. Like, how can I best support you? I actually told him, I said, I'm worried about you drinking. I thought what would have broken you was losing your grandfather, and you didn't. But I'm just seeing you, like, even just like watching him try to play with our kids, it was like he's there, but like a shell almost. And I just said, like, do you want to go back to therapy? He was in there before. But when my mom had died, he had chosen to, he did for like 2 more months, and then he stopped. He was kind of like, I associate so much of therapy with your mom. I just kind of need to take a little break. And so I just said, like, maybe, do you want to go back to therapy again? And he said, no, that's not it. I said, okay, well, if it's not that, I need you to reach out to the men in your life right now. Reach out to my uncles, reach out to our best friends. The 4 of us were best friends at that point. Once they saw us at our worst, I was honest with the wife, my best friend, Amanda, about the abuse that happened before. Her husband had sat down with him. Like, we just made the conscious decision to, like, they were going to love us through it all.
Right.
Which I'm so grateful for now. And he's like, maybe, I said, why don't you maybe go to the gun range? Like, what do you need to go to the gym? Like, healthy outlets here. And he just said, maybe I will go to the gun range. I'll reach out to the guys, see what, and I'm like, okay. Wednesday, next day, I remember I'm taking like a late Zoom, and he was supposed to be like either packing or doing something with our son. And I remember walking in our room, and I see him asleep. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday sleeping? Like, I'm over here busting my ass with work, trying to pack at night, do these things. We got to move in about 3-4 days. And instead of like getting upset with him, again, how we argued had just changed. Like, we were just like so healthy in it. And he immediately was, I'm so sorry. And I didn't yell. I wasn't upset. I just said, all right, I'm going to go run an errand. And you're on kid duty, like, and I'm gonna be back in 2 hours. We don't need to fight about this. Like, I just would have loved to have seen you if you weren't gonna be packing, like pouring into our son then, not sleeping. Now, obviously, they talk about, I've done a lot of research, a lot of people before, just so depressed. It's just like their bodies are shutting down. They don't know what else to do. They're just sleeping at that point. He sends me a text, I'm sorry. I said, I love you. Like, there wasn't the same us anymore. Next morning, Thursday, I had a like 7 a.m. Zoom with the client. And so for that morning, he was going to take the kids to school for me. So I could do my Zoom. So he did. And he came back. And what was so odd to me that day is I had probably been begging him for like a year to make me coffee. I was like, silly as it seems now to say that, but like I had told him, I said that would mean a lot to me to have our kids see something every day that you do for me. And he wasn't doing it. Just wasn't. But that morning when he came up after my Zoom into our office, he brought me a cup of coffee. And like, I was thrilled. Like, it just was like, I was so appreciative. Then we had like on our block of calendar, 30 minutes packing downstairs, going through like old clothes of our kids or something. Do we want to keep anything? And we're going through stuff. And I remember looking at him saying, I wonder if I didn't have our niece right now, if we'd be having our 3rd kid. He's like, maybe, I don't know, probably. And then he's going upstairs. I remember his coworker started calling him. I was jumping into a quick shower to change. I had physical therapy before he was going to have physical therapy. Mine's like 10:30. His is at 11:30. So I leave. And one of the biggest things I had as like a rule in our marriage is always kiss me goodbye, because you just don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And for whatever reason, like, we had just kissed right before I went into the shower. He went on his call. So when I got out and he's on his call still, I just came in and I kissed his right shoulder goodbye. And I left. And it's like, still makes me so mad. But I left to physical therapy. And while I was there, the guy's about to propose to his girlfriend that weekend, telling me how he's going to do it. And he asked, how did Michael propose? So here I am. I'm just like talking about how much I love my husband. And he sends me this text saying, I love you. And I immediately respond back, I love you more. I didn't know in that moment that was him about to take his life. 11:30 hits, and he's not there. I'm like, that's weird. He should be. We don't live, it's like we live like maybe 5 minutes away. So I did what any natural wife does. You look at their location. I saw he's at the Target by our house. And I was like, maybe we had gone earlier that week and dumped some big boxes in the dumpster. I was like, okay, maybe he's just dumping something and just didn't have his phone on him. That's why he's not answering. I'm like, but something's wrong. Like, you're not where you're supposed to be. I'm not going home. I'm going straight to Target. And it just was like this feeling of like any other time that I caught him with alcohol, caught him with just lying in it, of like, this is just bigger. And so I think I was there by 11:34, and I see surrounded by cop cars, and I just get out the car and I'm like, excuse me, can I ask what my husband's car's doing over there? And they said, how do you know that he was here? And they immediately start like questioning me. And I'm like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, and they're like, I'm going to ask you to sit down. We're getting a drone right now before we approach the car. The business inside called us. I'm also just like, I now think back to that day, like the thoughts I was having. It was June 13th, again, Arizona. I think it was probably like 115 outside. And I just remember like, he must be so hot in that car. What is he doing? Like, again, just like so unaware of like what actually is happening in this moment. So then while we're waiting for the drone to come, I call up again. My same two best friends, called up her husband, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I need you.
They didn't give you any more information on like why they were waiting for a drone or what?
To see what he had with him as a tool to, if they were safe to approach the vehicle. Okay. Yeah. They at that time were like thinking he's sleeping.
Okay.
And that the tool's like on his lap. Right. And so for safe, like they needed to like get the drone to see from like if they're safely able to approach the car. My friend comes and then they open up his car door and they didn't block anything. After about 10 minutes of him just being there and I'm seeing everything. That's when my friend had said, can we move a car so she's not seeing this right now? And even then, like, I still wasn't getting it. Like, I'm seeing his body not moving. I'm seeing blood all over the car. And it just was like numb. Mm-hmm. They then come over and say that they got a pulse. They're going to take him to the hospital. And so then my best friend's driving. We're falling behind the ambulance. The only person I texted in that moment was his mom. She was already estranged from our lives. January, a couple months back, had really ended that relationship officially with her. She was probably out of our lives, really for the majority of us living in Arizona. But I sent her a text while we're driving and I said, have you heard from your son today? And usually I would do that years before when he would go on a drunk bender and like, have you heard from him? And do you know where he is? She said, no, why? And that for me was really my answer of he still didn't want you in that last moment. And that's why I've kind of just handled his mom and kind of with our kids and whatnot, which get into. But we then get to the hospital. I had called my two aunts also. They met us in the parking lot. We all get to the hospital. And pretty much instantly, the doctor came over and said there was nothing we could do. And I said, what do you mean? I just kept saying, like, I just don't get it. Like, at that point to me, it was like, why now? Mm-hmm. Why after everything? I could have thought of 100 other times where you left me practically unconscious in a stairwell after you beat the shit out of me. Like, I would have thought that could have been a time. Or just like, again, level 10 fighting and when my friend's calling you, like, that could have been a time. Not then, not when you're sober, not when we're healthy, not when we have 2 kids. And I know how much it meant to him to be a dad. I remember them. Yeah, thanks. I remember them saying, do I want to say goodbye? I'm like, what do you mean say goodbye? I'm like, what do you? It's just like, and then my head immediately is like, well, I have a fucking Zoom call this afternoon. I have my kids who need to get picked up. What is the 100 things very quickly become 200 things? And yet I still have 3 cops standing in front of me who want to interrogate me and ask me questions right now. And I'm like, how am I being questioned? And what is anything? And was there a note? Was there this? Calling my niece. She was at the house with him when he had left. Like, did you talk to him? Did he say anything to you? But I don't even have the answers for her yet. And so it just very quickly became I don't even know how I made it through that day. And it's anytime I've like had to think like, oh, how am I going to get through this? It's so true. You and I have already lived through our worst days of our lives. I like to think we can get through anything now. And really everything else feels so much smaller.
Yeah.
Problems feel so much smaller. Fights feel so much smaller. I am really grateful I never had to go back home to our house. I think I would have crumbled seeing his toothbrush or freaking like the normal day-to-day things. My kids and I, for about 2 weeks, stayed with my aunt and my uncle, my cousin, and I had a couple girlfriends fly out. And between my girlfriends and my family, they finished packing up our house for us. Couldn't afford to, on my own, to move into the big, beautiful house. And I'm so grateful I now did not move into that same house. But my kids and I moved somewhere else in Queen Creek. And then same best friends, picked up my kids from school. My daughter actually stayed with the teacher for a couple of days. Again, her hurt is just so far different at 15-month-old. And my son, it was so important to me to tell him that day. So first my niece was brought over. I told her. And I remember looking at her being like, I never wanted to fuck up your life more than I already did. Or it already was. And at that time she had shed, because of you, my life has never been this good. And so I just told her, I don't know how, but I will try to do my best to keep you. And then my son came. And I call his therapist and I'm like, what the hell do I say to this kid? And she's like, you were just going to keep it the facts. I need to tell you something really bad happened. Your dad died. At that time, him at 3, it's often kids like, you hear it and you're like, okay. And then they kind of go off and play and they're like, wait, what? And they go back. But I will never forget that night, him just sitting up on the bed we were sleeping in and just like shaking. And to see your kid's heart break like that, I don't wish it upon my worst enemy. How do you explain death to a kid?
Yeah.
Now the conversation's gone a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and he deserves answers, but he just deserves so much more love.
Yeah.
And that was the day. At the end, I had somebody call his mom at the hospital and to tell her he never knew his dad, was never part of his life, never met him. And so I called her to end my pretty shitty day. Her first words were, was this some drunk bender shit? And I said, no, it's not. And if you would have ever once acknowledged that your son was sober for nearly 2.5 last years, you would know that.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I spoke to her on the phone. And we've been just picking up the pieces ever since.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't share anything of the abuse or trauma that went on between us. It wasn't until the 1-year mark, just before in May. It was when my mom's birthday was. And so to honor her, Beyonce was performing. We were big Beyonce fans. And this was the first, her Cowboy Carter album was her first one that my mom didn't get to listen to with me. And so I flew out to New Jersey in the pouring rain and I went to Beyonce by myself.
Oh.
And I remember just like this feeling coming over me of like, why am I still protecting this person who clearly didn't want to protect me?
Right.
Called those same friends up after and I just said like, I'm ready to share. So him and I sat down and released a podcast. Well, all 3 of us did. And it really was one walking through that day, finding him, what that was like for my best friend to show up in that moment. He didn't have to. And I'm forever grateful that he did. I've told him many times, I still feel so guilty because I'll never forget the image of seeing him. And if I had known truly what that was, I wouldn't have put that upon him. But they've shown up every single day for me and my kids more than family has, which has been a big topic for me and my kids lately of like, let's still talk about the people we do have in our life.
Yeah.
And who we are grateful that shows up for us. And so, I think it's just like this balance of always finding like, just because there's bad doesn't mean there can't be beautiful too.
Mm-hmm.
And just being willing to like have both have a seat at the table with you.
Yeah. I think it's a struggle that a lot of widows have, you know, seeing their kids in so much pain and not being able to take it away. Because, like, as a mom, you're the protector.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want your child to hurt. And it's like, how do we save them from something that, like, we can't save them from it.
We can't save them from it. It's like, I still know there's years more of hurt to come.
Yeah.
You know? Even like I do weddings, so I see father-daughter dances and things. And it's like, those first ones I had to do after, I was a wreck, for sure. Because I'm the one right now, when my clients don't have parents involved in their lives, coming up with creative ways for us to honor them. And so it's like, so quickly, I feel like I can see my kids now, and they're hurt when they're 25, 30 years old too.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. You just want to fix it for them.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so hard because you go through all these scenarios in your head and of like, what if, or this can happen to them, or what if they do this, or what if they turn in like this? In reality, they're like 5, and it's like, let them be kids. But it's so hard to do that because you know the type of pain they're going to endure for the rest of their lives. I feel like that's why I hate that comment, or like, you know, when people say like, it's been this long, like, you know, you should, like, why are you still talking about it every day? Or why are you still like, you know, whatever that thing is, like, it's been this long, like, you should be fine by now. And that makes me so mad for my kids, because they re-grieve that parent at every developmental stage. And people don't realize that. Like, when our kids are graduating high school and it's been, you know, like 10 years since their dad died,
doesn't mean that their dad
doesn't matter. They're still thinking about it. Like, I promise you, they're still thinking about it. And it's not fair to just diminish that pain from them, you know? And that's what hurts me. I feel like Eric lost his dad when he was 5. So he would talk to me a lot about like the hurt and the pain. And like when we had our first daughter, like he had a moment where he was like crying because he's like, I just realized my dad never gets to meet my kids, you know, and his dad died 20 something years ago. So it's not fair to like just diminish grief.
No, loss will always be a part of you.
Or like when people are like, well, they never really know him, so like they don't have memories, like maybe it's better. And I'm just like,
no.
How lucky are you?
Exactly. I'm like, what a luxury this is, that this doesn't have to be like your burden to carry for your kids too. Like, what a luxury. Thank you so much for your advice.
In this conversation that you're having with me, and then you get to go back to your life.
Go back to your life, go back to your partner, and like, just like your normalcy. Like, I don't feel like I have normal, you know, it's just like, what are we transitioning to? What's next? You know, but just same thing of Eric. I'm sorry to hear he also lost his dad too. With Michael's not knowing his dad, it was always why, I guess in my head, I really truly didn't think he was capable of a decision like this, because he knew what that was like. And so in my head, I was like, that's just never in the realm of like an option. Like, you could say you're not doing good, but like, we fix it. We do the things, we have tools, we have resources in this world where we don't have to be hurting and struggling if you're willing to work on those things. And then, you know, he did exactly what. And that's where for me now, like year 1, I played all the games of like the why. I actually, on my phone, I had started in my notes section, like my own personal thoughts of like, if I was angry, like what was that thought, or something that was unlocking like me and like processing everything. And I started to put just dates, and it was probably one of the most helpful things I think I did as a young widow, trying to understand his choice, because now I can look back at those and just see the growth of like, I was blaming him or just like angry, why now? Versus, I remember I was in California, I had taken my son to a Chargers game. His dad was a big Chargers fan. And that's when I just remember like crying in the bathroom once my son fell asleep, of being like, this was yours sooner. Like, I kept always asking the question, like, why now? Like, why not before, when things were so much worse? And that's when I started to be willing to accept, like, there's a version of this where he was doing this for us. And like, can I be willing to step into that space to understand this from his perspective? And eventually I got there. But it wasn't until I just was willing to say I'm allowed to be happy again, that like I've seen that change in my kids.
Absolutely. I think it's important to pour into yourself. And I think that's hard for like the newly widowed days, because especially when you have kids, you're so concerned about your kids, you put yourself on the back burner, and then, you know, like a year or whatever goes by and you're like, wow, I'm actually doing pretty shitty.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. I feel like year 2 was so much worse than year 1.
Yeah.
So much worse.
Yeah. You're like, my kids could be doing a lot better if maybe I was doing better. You know?
Was. And that's when I started to like traveling, because exactly that, in your early days, like people only want you to be with your kids. But I had to start working a month out. Like I was leaving in California to go produce. I needed to make money. But getting so much negative judgment for, even if I was working and being away from my kids, like, well, you shouldn't. Well, it's like, well, are you going to pay my bills?
Yeah.
Or are you going to? So then once I started to even just allow myself to take myself out to dinner. And again, I don't have help unless I have hired help. So I'm paying to be able to just be alone in my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Still getting judgment, like across the board, and just until I was willing to say, I don't care. I need to fill up my own cup, hence going to solo concerts or things. Like my kids started to see me being willing to, again, I didn't choose myself before with him.
Yeah.
How do I do that and learn who I am now? No longer a partner and wife, but a widow.
Yeah.
And I wish more widows felt it's okay to do that. It's okay to say, I need to have a night for myself, even if it means hiring a babysitter.
Yep.
Your kids are going to be okay. Your kids will still be taken care of. You're going to return a better mom to show up for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing the judgment's going to come either way.
Yeah,
no matter what
either way.
do.
So might as well go take yourself to a great dinner and go have some fun.
Yeah, no matter what you do, people always have something to say. So it doesn't, you can't win in a situation like that.
And even your closest friends, while they support you, they still don't know what it's like to live this life. Even your closest friends, I feel like, unless you're in this boat,
you don't know.
No, but like the minute somebody reaches out on social media or something, like I'm also I'm like, instantly I know your heart.
Yes.
Instantly.
Yeah. It changes you for sure and your perspective on life. And it sucks that it takes that to do so. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Speaking of judgment, you said you're dating again.
Yeah.
So when did you know you were ready, or how did that happen?
Oh no. But I think that's like, so my husband was my only boyfriend. So just like dating in general just was like so foreign to me. I about 4 months after, it was October, he passed in June, so whatever October is, I was in California to be a bridesmaid in one of my best friend's weddings. And on that weekend, me and 2 of my close friends were out at dinner, and this man walked up to our table and like approached me to hit on me and ask me out. I had no idea this man was hitting on me until my girlfriends like hit me on the arm and they're like, how dumb are you right now? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just was like so unaware.
Yeah.
Just was like, what do you mean? You know, at that point, I think I took off my wedding rings. Our anniversary was September 23rd. So that for me was the moment of like, I don't want to enter this next year of what this should have been wearing these.
Right.
I still keep them. If my kids choose to one day want to have them, that's their choice. So next month, so I wasn't wearing my rings when this man approached me. And I just was like so ill prepared, like just so ill prepared of like all the things, wasn't ready. But that's when I started this concept in my head of 10 men, 10 experiences, which really just became of like, I knew I needed to learn about myself. Right. At this point, I like to say I would be a really terrible girlfriend. I really only know how to be a partner and wife, as that's all I was.
Right.
And so being the lover girl that I am, I just didn't want to get into a relationship and immediately jump into wife mode without feeling like I actually knew who I was this time around. And that I wasn't willing to settle on my non-negotiables. And what are they now as a mom, a more established woman? So 10 men, 10 experiences. Not that I slept with all these men, but it really just became I want to learn 10 things about me. How am I going to tell a man I don't deserve this? How am I going to tell a man I don't want to sleep with them?
Yeah.
Or I'm a very confident person in my career. I like to think like 98% of the time I've got this, that like you put a hot man in front of me and I'm supposed to talk about my feelings and I like crumble. And it's like, who am I? Because then to me, I'm like back at being 21 years old again. And so I left men in bars who weren't treating me with respect. Oh yeah, it was like one of the greatest things. And it just was like, I actually don't need to put up with this. I was staying at a beautiful resort for work, and which Chad and I have learned, again, I could easily stay up in my hotel room quite easily, but I need human connection, right? Especially in those like first year. And so I'd sit at like the hotel lobby bar and have dinner. I remember there's this one really hot bartender and I was totally down for him, and I'm chatting up with other people who were there, and I had shared with somebody, I'm a widow, my partner had passed. Again, still my life. It just didn't come up in natural conversation yet with this man. He comes to hear about this and not even, so then he asked me, if you don't mind me asking, how did your partner die? And I said, he took his life. Not even 2 minutes later, he's making a joke about suicide. And I just shoot him a text, like, take the glass of wine, go upstairs. He's like, so we hanging out? I'm like, no, anybody who's capable of making that kind of comment directly to me after me sharing that, it's not somebody I care to share my time with. But I wouldn't have had the confidence to say that before. And so he became a part of one of my 10 men, 10 experiences for just teaching me I don't need to allow that in my life. And so it kind of hit my 10 experiences, and I was like, okay, I'm still not ready. And so I think for me, thus far on this dating journey, it has been more convenient for me to date when I'm traveling. I think it's definitely has scared me. The thought of like running into a man with my kids here in Arizona terrifies me, as my son is very vocal on wanting me to find somebody, and he will happily be like, you should go talk to that man over there. And I'm like, please don't play you don't need to play wingman right now.
That is so cute.
It is so cute. It is. And it's funny. He'd be like, Mommy, what's your type? And I'm like, what's your type, kid? You know, like, and I love that he's not, do I think there's a realm when he eventually does see me with someone that he is going to have different emotions to have to process. But yeah, it's just kind of been I like to think currently right now I'm probably very emotionally unavailable, but like the healthiest version of myself at the same time. I think it takes a lot now for me to be willing to give up my peace of just like, I can make myself happy. I don't want to rely on somebody. And I think being able to give somebody that amount of trust again is going to take a very strong individual. Yeah. So now kind of like my non-negotiables, I'd say first and foremost, I need to be physically and emotionally safe, no matter what. I don't care if we're 5 years in and we're moved in together and we're married, you punch the wall next to me, I'm taking my kids and we're leaving. Grief, I have learned. I had one man who I was pretty like a very serious situationship with, who I was refusing to say we were like together. He couldn't walk in the grief with us. I'd say I'm bringing my kids to go visit their dad at the cemetery, and either couldn't acknowledge it, even ask like, how was that? Like nothing. And even when I'm like, listen, like I was going to be willing to like move my kids to Nashville for this man. And I just said like, this loss can already feel so isolating. I don't want to move me and my kids and still feel alone in this grief too. Like if this is something you seriously want, I need a partner who wants to not heal me, but is willing to hold space and try to understand what this loss is like. And so he wasn't willing to ask questions. He wasn't willing to even just like step into that. And I've learned that's not something then for me. And so again, one of the 10 men of the experiences of just, who am I? What do I need now? So now it's been more of like, I just want to have fun. And if the right person finds me in that, then they find me in that. If someone's uncomfortable and isn't willing to bring up my life, then either as a friend or as a relationship, like you're not in my bubble. Yeah.
It's not going to work, and it's not fair for your kids either, because it happened and it's their life.
It's their life. And I have 2 really incredible, beautiful kids. And I know whoever does get to walk into their life will be so well received and loved. And it's not that I want to just be like scared of introducing someone. I want that. I want my daughter to see what it's like to be loved by a man. I want my son to know how he should love a woman. I want that for them. But I don't know if all times I'm always like, want that for myself, because I think it's such a scary piece to, I trusted him. And then I really thought we got there. And so to have our timeline get ripped up underneath us, it just became a people can hurt you and you can't control other people. So all I can do is control myself and how I'm going to show up. So might as well have fun.
Yeah.
Ask random men on the internet to be my date to a concert. And see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm here for that Ella fella post. I'm waiting to see,
I'll show you. I'll show you. He's fun. He's great. But like, it's just meant to be fun. Yeah. Like, I don't want to put pressure on me. I think also men who like put pressure on me, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to run too. Like, it has to feel so right that for even me to be like willing and able to like open to that, because I can have fun by myself at a concert. I can take myself to a beautiful dinner. I don't need somebody to like fill up those pieces. And so yeah.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
It makes me really happy for you. I love that. I know obviously our stories are not ones that people want to walk through, but seeing light at the end of the tunnel is always nice to see.
We've been like social media friends, but like to just see your journey with your partner and your kids and blending your families together, it makes it a lot less scary for me in my boat to be like, this is possible to have a blended family too. Yeah. You love each other's kids. You support each other through your grief. So thanks for still sharing those things too.
Yeah, I always say social media can suck really bad, but sometimes there's a lot of good out of it. Like, I've met so many incredible widow friends in a community that just gets it, which I feel like is so important to have when you're in it.
When you're in it.
Yeah.
Because nobody else gets it.
Exactly. No one gets it, and you feel so alone, and it freaking sucks.
It does. It does.
And I think it's also good for kids to meet other kids that parents died by, it doesn't matter how, just, having...
They died.
Yeah.
And it's, you missed your dad too on Father's Day? Me too. Yeah. And it's just like, instantly there's something.
Yes. It's like a connection for them too. I remember when I took my oldest to her first day of kindergarten, she was like crying and she's like, I'm going to be the only one with a dead dad. And it like broke me. And that's when I was like, she feels different from everyone.
Everyone.
So just meeting other kids who have a dead parent, it's like, okay, let's be friends.
Let's be friends. It's like, I hate that we have to be like, stay together.
I know.
I'm like, I can't wait for our kids to get together.
I know. Our boys, I'm really excited for that. Yeah. They're the same age. It'll be fun to see them.
It'll be fun.
What is one thing that you would say grief has taught you?
A lot. Well, I think one thing grief has taught me, I think that just life can still be beautiful. I think I was so scared of that, like being happy in moments that you should be sad. Like, is that wrong? And it's not, it's both. And being okay with that. And I don't want to say welcoming it, because I don't welcome the grief. But I'm not running from it. And so it's you can still have beautiful moments. You could still laugh at like, I remember my best friend and I, when we were doing the suicide walk last year, here we are, we're like, Michael would be so pissed right now that we're doing this shit for him. And it's like, but we're laughing as we're crying, walking in this field of people. And it's like, but you could still laugh.
Yeah.
And you could still have this loss, and you can still make Christmas morning okay. And you can still have kindergarten or freaking my son's preschool graduation and be crying because they should be there. But God's so freaking proud of your kid too, and the human that they still are regardless. And so I think if there's anything is grief, is just life can still be beautiful.
Yeah. I love that. I say it all the time. Grief and joy can and do coexist. You don't have to feel one over the other.
What do you feel like you learned now 3 years out?
That it still sucks.
Yeah.
I actually, this weekend, I had a really hard weekend this weekend, and I don't think I've cried that much since I don't even know how long, but it was just a moment of everything, just like all the feelings came back, because my youngest, we're on our way to a birthday party, and my youngest is like, yeah, but like, how did daddy die? Like, I know he was like in a hotel, and my older two know, but like, as you said, they ask questions and then they come back and they ask again and more and more. So like, all my kids know in an age appropriate way. And like, she was 13 months. She doesn't remember her dad, she like doesn't know him. So we were just driving, like talking about, I don't even know when. She's like, so how did daddy die? And I think I gave a generic answer of like, his body just stopped working. He stopped breathing. Yeah, but how? Why? Why did it happen? And so we had to get into it on our way to an 8-year-old's birthday party. And then I was already in a mood. And then the next day morning, something happened with my oldest, and she was like sad. And I was just pissed off. Like, it doesn't matter how much time has passed. it sucks that we are the only ones who will love our kids the way we love them, you know, like the way that a mom and a dad can love our kids. Like, I'm not saying that Kevin doesn't love my kids. He loves them so much, but the connection will never be the same.
No.
And God, I was like, still, like, it makes me so freaking mad that my kids have to go through this life without the other person who loves them as much as I do.
I don't think anything makes me angry.
It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
And I've noticed as time goes on, sorry to anyone walking this journey, that it only gets worse for me.
Yeah.
Like, the anger really, truly does just build up as my kids get older and as they voice like, I miss Dad. I wish he was here. Why did this? Like, I want him here. It really just makes me even more angry because I don't know what to tell you, kid. Like, I wish the same too, but
it's not something we can change.
And I can't take the pain away from you. And as they get older and they start to really realize that forever is forever and you're not going to see your dad. So that's definitely been very surprising for me. Like, I knew in the beginning that it sucked and it was going to suck forever, but I didn't realize certain emotions would grow over time because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say definitely the hardest part is all the emotions combined with your kids' emotions.
Yeah, I agree. I always say if the hardest piece is not, if it was just me, probably was like up to move to Europe and like just like restarted my life completely different. But how do you process your grief when you have 2 kids or 3 kids? Like,
and so young, while they still already don't know what the world is.
Doesn't even know what the world is.
They don't know how to process emotions. They don't know how to do all these things. And then to
have these adult conversations with their children is just, and how do you do it? And then people are judging you for it. And you shouldn't have told them. Well, you should tell them everything. And it's like, well, I'm just going to meet my kid where he's at today.
Exactly.
And I had made a post this weekend about with my son's birthday. He woke up immediately, wanted to see photos and pictures of him and his dad. And I had shared in this post that for me, I look back at these photos, he was blacked out, wasted as we're heading into the hospital, and just like,
man, I can relate to that.
Yeah, it just like you look back and it's like, how was this our lives? And so I'm hating his, again, the anger just like grows. So I'm so pissed off his dad looking at these videos, but my kid just wants to include his dad on his birthday morning. And I just shared like, what's that like? Like, still got to show these pictures, and it's. My son, we have open talks about his dad drinking. And if he would have asked to see those same videos, I probably would have told him, these videos, just, like, you can watch them, but mommy's only going to watch it one time and you can have my phone. Because, well, why? Because it makes mommy sad. Well, that wasn't the best time in our lives together. That's usually where and he's like, oh, was that a time when daddy was drinking? Yeah, it definitely was, dude. But that wasn't the conversation for his birthday morning. Right. And it's just us as moms, or at least the surviving parent, you have to like, so quickly regulate your own emotions and step back and see the situation for what it is because I could have told him that same story, but that's not going to help him on his birthday morning. It's not going to make his dad come back, and all it's going to do is chip him down even more and
make him feel some type of way that's not good.
Nope. Yeah. The amount of times I want to just like yell at my kids and be like, fucking hate your dad right now. That's why I'm angry. That's why I'm short. That's why I'm stressed. That's why it's this. It's because he's not here and this is all on me. Yeah. Nobody else is going to come around. Yep. It's all on me. And so, the anger grows. The anger definitely grows, but also at the same time, like, I can still have so much empathy and compassion too. Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way too. And I hope our kids can too one day. That's I hope the whole point of, being so open and having these conversations with them. So I hope. Well, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with us. I know it's never fun to go through, certain situations again, but I hope you know that your story really is helping other people. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, thanks for being 3 years out, because it gives me at 2 years out hope. Yeah.
There is hope. I remember when I went to Camp Widow, I was like 3 months after Eric died, and that was like a word they threw around all the time was hope. And I was like, I fucking hate that.
I hate that word.
I hate that word so much. Like, there's no hope. My husband's dead. He just died. I have 3 kids. But no, there truly is. There truly is hope. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. And thank you guys for being here. If you want to continue to be a part of these conversations, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And don't forget, just for today, keep going.